Allow me to introduce myself here. Uh-oh, something strange here. Ha! It was a sham, a trick. So one thing that you can empower yourself with when it comes to being able to edit your own video is to make a loop of yourself during Zoom so that if you need to step away but want to appear present, um, you have that capability, you have that power. Anyway, I'll get rid of that. I just thought that was funny. So thanks for joining us again today, where we will be talking about video editing with OpenShot. So for those unfamiliar, OpenShot is a free open source video editing software that is surprisingly flexible, as well as a great place to start for beginners. First step here is, of course, downloading OpenShot from their website at openshot.org, installing it, and I've also included some helpful links to the sample project files I'll be using. I got to make sure that's updated. And I do encourage taking some time to peruse the official user guide, but know that Google, the internet, YouTube is your friend. If you've got a specific question of some kind, chances are someone has asked it, someone has answered it. It's got a very thriving community as far as those who use it, those who become very familiar with it. Now, when you do click on that link, you'll be brought to the OpenShot site. It says it right there on the tin, simple and free. Download link is right here, and it is available for Mac, Windows, Linux, and even Chromebooks, if that's what you happen to be working on. So let's talk about OpenShot. What's the value here? Sí, pero why? Why learn OpenShot? Excellent question. I'm glad I asked it. So as I mentioned, it is free video editing software suitable for class, personal, or even paid projects if you're savvy. It does work on almost any operating system, and at least I would consider it a simple enough place to start learning and potentially be a good stepping stone toward more advanced editing tools. If you find yourself becoming much more familiar with it, and we'll talk a little bit about the strengths and weaknesses of OpenShot, which is, it is free, it is accessible, but at a certain point you'll start to get to a stage where, I have these bigger ideas, but the tools are just not quite there. That's when you can start to look at more advanced tools. There are more open source options, but of course, if you maybe want to consider turning this into a profession, OpenShot's not a bad place to get the fundamentals to then move on to things like, say, Adobe Premiere, Sony Vegas, Avid, if you decide to go into broadcast television, for instance. But what we'll cover today is the OpenShot interface, how to set up your project initially, importing video, audio, and image files, editing that video and audio, adding transitions and titles, and ultimately exporting your video into a nice, shiny final product. All right, so from here, we'll be making a jump from the old slide deck into OpenShot. Well, actually, so yes, this is OpenShot right here. This is what it looks like when you first open the program. And it's good to keep in mind, I know that anytime I've opened up any kind of new software, especially creative software, it can be a bit overwhelming. A lot of buttons. It's unsure where things are going to go, what kind of issues you run into, where to start. With that, I do want to reemphasize, by the way, if you do have any questions, you want me to either review something I've done or just repeat anything, slow down, what have you, please, by all means, sound off in chat, raise your hand. I'll be doing my best to watch that. It is on my second screen here. But yeah, with that, let's move right along. So major components of OpenShot for our navigation purposes are the project files panel right here. So as you're working on your project, any video, audio, or image files are going to live right here. So that's before you edit them. This is kind of your little basket where they'll be. There's also the video preview panel. So while you're editing your project, this is where you're going to see how your footage, graphics, audio is all presented when it's arranged together. And this here is the timeline. So that's where you'll be able to actually arrange, again, any of your audio-visual objects that you're working with in a particular project. Now, I'm going to show you the way that I typically like to approach my video projects. There are certainly many aspects of this where the way I like to put it is, at the end of the day, nobody's going to really see how the sausage is made. So if you have your own means of organization, or you find other ways to accomplish a certain effect, there really is no right or wrong way, as long as you get the desired end product. But I'll show you how I like to at least deal with file organization. So I've made myself a project file up here on my desktop, and within, you'll see that I have made even more folders within that. So if I have specifically still images, image files, that has its own folder. If I have raw audio or music in this case that I plan on using during the project, that's its own folder. Same for raw video footage. And what I have here that says project files, anytime you save an OpenShot project, it actually creates a save file, and it creates a separate folder for that. So just to reduce the amount of noise anytime I open this up for myself, I go ahead and just tuck that away there. And what we're going to do is we're going to start a brand new project. Having clicked that, nothing changes for us, but that's okay. If you were working on another project, you decide to start another one, then you'll start anew. The first thing that we're going to do is we need to get our footage, our music, all of that stuff in here. A couple of ways to do it. So one being, we can go to import files here with this green cross. We can right click on the project files panel, hit import files, or if you so choose, you could go over to where the files are directly, select them, and just drag and drop. It'll give you the option to import images as image sequences. I like to choose no, but I don't really think that there's a right or wrong answer for that particular thing. Ultimately, they'll be displayed similarly. I'm going to bring in my music, and I'm going to bring in the award-winning footage that I've shot just for this purpose. So typically by the time you're in your editing program, and there are other workshops that cover these steps, this is a project you've been planning on working on. So you might have a script, you might have an outline, you have some vision of what the final product is going to be. Now, the footage that we're using here was originally used for an Instructable that taught how to create a Masters in 4 competition presentation. So it's what I expect as an end product is that we'll start off with a plain graphic that will introduce me, and then we'll go directly into footage of me speaking, and it's going to be a presentation that has 4 slides. That are split up depending on the topic that I'm discussing at a given time. I want those slides to appear on screen with me at the same time. And I also want to create a custom title that I'll attach to the end that thanks my audience for watching. And just to spice things up a bit, I also plan on adding some music in the background. So with that vision in mind, what we want to do from here, now that we've got all of our files here in the project files panel, I'm going to start dragging these down. So this is my introduction slide. I'm going to go ahead and drag that here onto the timeline. What we've got here on the timeline are tracks. I'll go ahead and max this out here. So by default, you've got 5 tracks on the timeline. And as you can see, when I brought down this image, it turns it into a clip or a block. Tracks can hold images, they can hold audio, they can hold video. So any way that you'd like to arrange it is fine. Independently, it does not make a difference what track I put this clip on. However, what it really functions as is, if you can imagine, stacked layers. So I'm going to play a bit of the video here. I'm grabbing what's called the playhead, and as you can see, I can move forward and back in my video footage. So that's how we'll navigate that relatively quickly throughout the process of editing. So let's go ahead and play some of the actual footage here. So there's a few seconds of this opening graphic. So far, so good. I can hear myself. I can see myself. And as you can see, based off of the position of these clips here, once that clip ends, we start right off on my video. Now, let's say I were to put this on top of my video. As you can
Hey,
see,
Tom, I don't think you're sharing your sound.
Oh no, I can hear myself, but no one else can. So let's go ahead and rectify that. Thank you for chiming in there. Alrighty. Sound off, everyone. Can you hear my voice? Not this one, but the video voice.
I'm the Digital Media Manager with FSU Libraries. In
Yes.
presentation,
Awesome. Good to know. Thank you for catching that for me. Alrighty, so returning once more, this is what was supposed to happen. With this graphic on top of my
name is Tom Cruise. I'm the Digital Media Manager with FSU Libraries.
video and spoken voice, as you can see, it's literally layering it on top. So this is the visual we're going to see. But we're already accomplishing what I originally set out to do, which is I want the graphic to stand by itself, then go directly into my presentation. Alrighty. So from here, there may be times throughout your project where you want to see something in greater detail. So I really want to see if there's, for instance, like any space between these clips. And this you can do by zooming in and out. There's a couple of ways to accomplish this. There is a blue line here with a plus symbol and a minus symbol at either end. And as it's labeled, you can zoom in or zoom out. I'll also try to do a good job of explaining shortcut keys. So as you become more familiar with the program, while there is a physical button for almost every function, shortcuts will ultimately really empower your ability to move throughout and navigate things quickly. So from now on, instead of using either these buttons or dragging this line back and forth, I'm going to be using the minus button and the equal sign on my keyboard, which will zoom me in and out. Now, if I ever do something very quickly and you've kind of missed, like, wait, how did he do that? By all means, let me know, and I'll be happy to explain that as well. I really have to work against my muscle memory to make sure that I'm demonstrating properly. So I'm close enough to see that there's an unwanted space between the opening clip and when I start to speak. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this clip over. And as you can see, when I do that, a blue line appears right between the clips. That's a very helpful feature called snapping, which is this little magnet here. Basically, it kind of automatically moves the clip so that it's right at the end of the previous one. What could happen otherwise is you could accidentally overshoot, and now the clips are sitting on top of each other, might automatically put in some kind of a transition, which can be useful sometimes. Alrighty. So the first thing I want to do, I'm recalling that there are different topics that I discuss throughout where I want to make sure I have a different slide appear. So what I'm going to do in this case, it would be good to have this scripted out ahead of time, but let's say I wasn't so organized. I'm going to bring down now my slides. So I've got 4 slides for this particular presentation. I'm going to drop them down here in order. So I've got one where I introduce my topic. I have another where I begin talking about starting the video with the title slide, and I end this talking about the maximum amount of slides I can have. I mention on the next slide, no props or note cards, and also mention that finalists have the option to upload a new video. And my last slide is a conclusion and wishing competitors good luck. So without my script handy, what I can do at the very least is take the information on these slides and use those as my guide for when I know I want to transition to the next one. So what I'm going to do, if I want to choose multiple slides and move them around, I can click and drag this selection square, and I'll go ahead and move these to the end. I want to see how long I need this particular presentation slide up. Now, something that's going to be handy for something like this is looking at the audio. And we can do this by going over to, I'm right-clicking. This gives you several options. We'll talk about some of them over the course of this workshop. I'm going to go to Display, and I'm hitting Show Waveform. Now, what that does is it's going to display the audio waveform. So I can see when my voice is at its loudest, when it's lower. And I also do voiceover work as well. So I've become very familiar with how to read this. I know that when I speak, I usually start off a given sentence up here, and then as I start to finish my statement, I know that I'm going to speak even lower and even descend into a vocal fry. So this will help me at least navigate where certain phrases are beginning or ending.
In this short presentation, I'll be providing an overview of the video requirements in Florida State University's Masters in 4 virtual competition. Your video should begin with a Masters in 4 title slide.
All right. So if you can see it there, it might be a little small. I can see exactly what I was describing earlier, which is by the time I actually start talking about a new topic, I start a new statement, the waveform has a little spike right there where I start to discuss that new topic. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in here so I can see it in greater detail. And now what I'm going to do is the process is called trimming, but basically that's where I can highlight the end of this graphic here, and you can do the same with video. And if I click it and drag it, I can either shorten it or I can lengthen it. So since I know that my intro slide should end here, I'm going to drag it over to this section. And now zoom back out, and I'm going to drag my next slide over here. And hopefully my handy dandy snapping feature will not betray me, and I'll be able to smoothly transition into my next slide. Now you might notice that we're not quite meeting my end vision of having both myself and the slide on screen, and that's okay. With this particular editing process, we're going to go by what I like to call passes. So for this one, we're just arranging content. We're not looking for the final beautiful product. We'll worry about what's called transforming these slides down the road. But for now, and this is something you'll get used to over time, we're going to rewatch this to make sure that the pacing is right where we want it.
In Florida State University's Masters in 4 virtual competition. Your video should begin with a Masters in 4 title slide, like the one at the beginning of this video.
So we're on target so far. I'll go ahead and listen for when I talk about the maximum number of slides here. And so even though I can't see my video and I don't have that particular reference for myself, again, having this waveform here is at least helpful for me getting some visual idea of where I am when I'm speaking in the script. If you're using something like, say, a voiceover that's just audio, again, the waveform can be very helpful for knowing when you want to transition from one visual element to the next.
To the best of your ability, find a location with a plain or solid background. Your video should only use a single camera angle and be one continuous shot with no cuts, edits, or split clips. Your presentation can contain a maximum of 4 slides displayed in the upper right or upper left corner of the screen.
Alrighty. For those of you who have sharp eyes over there, you may have noticed that when I said it should be in the upper right, I pointed to the left point of the screen because I didn't realize I was being mirrored. Those are the kind of things where when you see them afterward, you can say, Shucks, we'll fix it in post. So with that, I know that my touching on maximum 4 slides was going to be the end of that particular part of the presentation. I've got my next slide here. I'll just drag it right over. And in this one, finalists having the option to upload a new video. I know that that'll be the last point covered here. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to go ahead and drag my playhead forward, which can sometimes be a faster way of reviewing your footage rather than having to watch it over and again in its entirety. I'm going to make an educated guess and see if this might be somewhere in the region of where my next slide begins. So looking for talking about uploading a new video.
Judging up until the final submission date. Competitors will be judged on the presentation.
All right, so.
Student free for judging up until the final submission date.
I know personally that that's where I last talk about uploading, because they can do so, again, through the final date of the competition. All right. And then I can go ahead and drag over my last presentation slide. Let's see if that matches up. Let's make sure.
Competitors will be judged on the presentation, the student's ability to explain their research to a non-specialist audience, and their slides. Rest assured that video recording quality or level of editing expertise will not impact the judges' scores, but be sure to review your footage to ensure that you can be clearly heard and understood by those viewing your video.
Alrighty, so we're looking good. I know that I'll have to extend this last slide through the end of my presentation. Now, when I shot this before, I knew that at some point I had reached over to my phone to click it and stop recording. That's still in this clip. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there, I'm going to trim that out.
Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful and wish you luck on your Masters in 4 presentations.
That's me making eye contact and reaching over.
On your Masters in 4 presentations.
So what I'm doing, by the way, to play and pause, I'm just pressing the space bar key at any given time. And that's how I am going about previewing that. So I'll just drag it over. Again, I can reference the waveform when I know I've said my last word. I can zoom in here for finer detail, click and drag the end of the clip. And there we are. Now it just ends on my smirk and blink, which I think is fine enough to include here. I'll go ahead, drag this presentation slide here to the very end. Now, talking about the strengths and weaknesses of OpenShot, we discussed a little bit the snapping function, which kind of automatically places certain clips for you to kind of take some of the guesswork, since, you know, let's say a video is shot. That's my dog Guinevere. She has opinions. So let's say you're filming video. Some of you may know that if you're you know, watching a film at the movies, it's shot at 24 frames per second. 24 images make up 1 second. In OpenShot, it's possible for something to stay on screen for a frame or two longer than it should be. So if you're looking to make sure that things, oh, someone says hi doggo in the chat, she appreciates it. So if you want to preview something in great detail, frame by frame, you can use the left and right arrows to move to that speed. So sometimes OpenShot has a little bit of difficulty going quite where you want it, and I'm sure that we'll end up doing that later in the editing process to refine how things go. Alrighty. So we're looking great so far. I've got the presentation as far as content is concerned pretty much done. Now I want to refine the video visual portion in order to make sure that when I'm talking, these slides are visible on screen in the corner. And the way that we go about doing that is by using the transform function. Now, the first time I go about this, I'll go ahead and let you in on a secret. The way that I do it will be not incorrect, but it's not going to give me the effect that I want. So I selected this first clip. I'm going to right-click it and come down to transform. This can also be done with Control R if you're using, by the way, if I ever say a shortcut key and I say Control, if you're using a Mac, you can just use Command. So Control or Command R. And you might not see it very well, but what this has done is if you look at the slide here, several transform points have appeared at the corners, the sides, and there's a little circle in the middle that'll allow me to move it around. So I'm going to grab it here in the corner. And as you can see, I was back there the whole time. So I'm making it bigger and smaller, but you might notice that I could accidentally get it stuck stretched, which I don't want. So what I'm going to do is while I'm transforming it, I'm going to hold Control, if you're on Mac, Command, and while I'm resizing it, it's going to keep it at the same ratio so that it doesn't get stretched or distorted in any way. I think this is a pretty appropriate size. I'm going to go ahead and grab it with a circle in the middle and drag it up to the corner here. So far so good, appearances would tell us. However, let me go back and see just how this looks. Will I be satisfied with the result?
My name is Tom Cruz. I'm the Digital Media Manager with FSU Libraries. In this short presentation, I'll be providing...
So maybe I could make a stylistic choice where I wanted to animate by starting off big and going small. Someone asked in chat, how did you resize it without distortion again? I'll be able to show you that in just a moment, actually. So by transforming while this playhead was in the middle of the clip here, what it's done, it's very tiny, but a little green point has popped up. It's created a keyframe, which means it's going to animate from full screen to the size that I decided on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hit Control Z. Well, actually, know that you can use Control Z if you want to undo. But let's say you've made a bunch of changes back to back. You might have to undo quite a few times. What I'll come here to do, I believe is what I want to do, is right-click, go to Animate, and hit No Animation. So that'll remove that transition from starting big to small. One thing that can really help us here, and what we need to do so that it starts off small right away, I'm going to hold Shift and hit, I'm going to hold Control and hit left on my keyboard. When you have a clip selected, what that does, if you hit right or left with Control started, it's going to put it at the very end or the very beginning of a clip. I need to make my transformation change at the very beginning so that it doesn't animate. So let's go through that process again. Going to right click, go to transform. And to answer your question from before, what I'm doing to make sure that it doesn't distort, I'm holding Control, or if you're on a Mac, hold Command while you're clicking and dragging this so that it stays that same size ratio. Make it a little bigger here. All right, let's play it back one more time. Make sure that it's right where I want it.
My name is Tom Cruz. I'm the...
All right, we've got an adequately sized slide. My face is present, and there's no animation that might distract. Again, it might be something that you intend to put in, so you know how to do that. For our purposes today, I want to make sure that it doesn't animate. I appear at the same time up there. Before I continue, do we have any other questions so far or thoughts? Again, if anything comes to mind while we're in our workshop today, by all means, feel free to chime in. Make sure I see hands just in case too. Alrighty, so we want to do the same.
Your video should be
with the next clip, but something can kind of go wrong. Insert mind blown emoji. Thank you. I'm charmed to imagine that anything I do here today can bring that about, so appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing I did earlier. I'm using the control and arrows to make sure I'm at the very beginning of the clip. This time I'm going to be fancy and hit Control R to bring up my transformation controls. And I'm going to do my best to make sure it's there. Oh, the other slide's on screen for a second. Oh, it's going to take so long to get it exactly the same. I give up. I don't want to do that. That's too much. What do I do? He said, knowing the answer. So what I'm going to do, if I want to get the exact same position and size for my next slide, let's go back to that first slide. I'm going to right click. And I'm going to go to where did that option go? Did they change it on me? Come now. You know, it's going to seem like really clever over here, but I think that it's actually betrayed me. But what I should be able to do, you'd imagine, is I can copy the existing size properties. In fact, I think I got to go to the keyframe is what I need to do. Let's see what happens if I just copy it. I don't think that's going to give us the desired effect. Nope. What I should be able to do is you can actually copy the transformation effects that you've created. So in this case, inconsistency sometimes can be the sort of issue that you run into when you're using open source software, as you can imagine. But I expected that something like this might happen. So this being the case, since for some reason my option to do so hasn't popped up, what you should be able to do is you can right click on this. You should see copy keyframes, but it's not here. And then you can go ahead and just apply that to the very next clip. Unfortunately, it's just not here. Struggle with me for a moment. A moment ago, I was blowing minds, and now here I find myself humbled. Let's go ahead and see if I can brute force this here. No, it's probably time that we moved on. So I'm going to cheat a little bit. What I've done is I've actually gone ahead and saved a completed version of this. So when it functions properly, you should be able to come in and copy the same effect that you've done previously. And when things just work out for you. No, I don't want to save the changes here. How would you compare this program with Shotcut, also open source? Does one have more functionality than the other? So this one's actually, Shotcut is another open source program as well that is also for video editing. If I remember offhand, Shotcut might not have a Mac version, if I'm not mistaken. So yes, it currently does have a Windows version that you can download. And, oh, they might have a Mac version as well. And Linux. The thing that I ran into with Shotcut is that I found the interface not quite as intuitive, which is kind of ironic to say now, given what we just ran into. But I personally didn't find it quite as intuitive and easy to start off with. Oh my gosh. Okay, so now we're seeing what we should be seeing. So if you've made any changes to a particular slide, sorry, I'll come back to, let me answer this question first. I found that the interface for Shotcut is not quite as simple and straightforward for someone who's just starting out. But it is very much a valid tool if you want to start there. And at least with my experience with it, I found that it tends to crash more often. It's a bit more unstable. As you can see, OpenShot does have its own issues when it is working properly. As you can see, I made the same changes with this slide here. When you do highlight copy, you can come down to keyframes. So that's the information that tells you, oh, no problem, happy to help out. This is the information that tells the clip what size to be and where to go. So I'll copy all the keyframes. As you can see, that's already been done here. But what I'll do at my own peril is I will actually remove the animations from this. It's going to go back to the beginning of the clip. We're going, and when you've copied keyframes, you'll now get the opportunity to paste. And that'll make it the size that you want. So you saw there, I had to move a frame forward so that it could update and show me the desired effect. But as you can see, it made that change and it's the exact same size. Alrighty, and everything's timed out just the way that we wanted previously.
Virtual competition. Your video should begin with a Masters in 4 title slide.
Now I've gone ahead and done the same thing for the following clips. Copy, keyframes, all. Go to the beginning of that clip, paste. So I'll spare you me doing that once more. All right, so at this juncture, what I'd like to do is I'd like to add some classy transitions between these slides. I've already done this here before, where
no props.
As I move on to a new topic, and we'll see, as I move on to a new topic,
no props, including note cards, are permitted.
Now the slides actually crossfade, or they fade in instead of just a hard cut from one slide to the next.
No additional sound.
Pardon the necessity to hear my voice over and again.
It's displayed in the upper right or upper left corner of the screen. No props, including note cards, are permitted.
So I'd like to go ahead and recreate that effect elsewhere. OpenShot does come with several different transition effects. So you can get fancy in all kinds of ways. I tend to enjoy the classic and simple fade. But either way, we can use something a little bit different. So the way that we transition between any two clips, if you use other programs, you can just have them next to each other like this. Hang on, let me move it up here for your viewing benefit. And they're just back to back. Now, the problem with doing this is that, so the transitions, by the way, if I'm looking at project files, down here is where I can hit a tab that goes to transitions. And I'm selecting fade and dragging it down onto my timeline. So I've got it directly between these two here. Let's play it back and see what happens.
It's in Florida State University's Masters in 4 virtual competition. Your video should begin with...
That doesn't look good. So this is one of the oddities when it comes to OpenShot. You'd think that just dragging it down, you'll get the desired effect that you want. What you actually need to do, so I'm taking the edge of this clip here and I'm actually dragging it on top of the other one. Sometimes this will automatically create a transition effect and it'll pop up. Other times, basically what it's doing is it's making sure that there's a little bit of one image that will fade into the next. It's very difficult to see here, but you can still see some of the previous clip underneath this one. It's semi-transparent. So what I'm going to do, I've dragged down fade. I'm going to make sure it covers both clips here.
That virtual competition. Your video should be...
Now the transition works. And again, I've gone ahead and done this with my other slides ahead. It's looking fancy. We are one step closer to our award-winning competition video here. I'm assuming that whatever you create will be award-winning. Thank you. Alrighty, so I wanted to create a classy closing slide after I'm done speaking. So I'll return to project files here. There's a couple of ways to do this. You could always go to create a new title by hitting Control or Command and hitting T. This will bring up the titles template, and there's several different varieties that you can go for. Some have some graphics that exist on them, but I would like to go with something simple, something classy. I made this one earlier, but I'll show you how to make little changes here. So it has that file name for the title anytime I want to use it. And here I can change what the text says. So I say, thank you for watching. I'm going to spice it up and say, thank you so much for watching. And so you have options here to change the font as well as the color. Now, the way that this should work, the way that it works for me at least, is any font that you have on your computer, OpenShot should be able to see and use. It's selected Ubuntu here, but you may have seen my choice previously. It's perfect. Comic Sans, you know, something classy, something that would be award-winning. I'll pick my size. We'll change my background color. We'll say yellow, something happy, springtimey. And you can also change the background color as well. We'll make it a dark blue. There is absolutely no graphic design discipline that is going into this. For those who may be familiar enough, the fact that I chose Comic Sans alone should be an indication of how seriously I am taking the titles today. But as you can see, you do have quite a bit of freedom when it comes to creating these titles. Now, if you've used other video editing programs, I will admit it can be a bit limited when it comes to how you can format titles within OpenShot. It's available, but it's not the best. So you can always say, create a slide in PowerPoint, for instance, export it as an image, and you could always use that. But for now, I think this is perfect. So I'll keep it as is. I don't want it to stay on screen for too long. I'm going to shorten it down to 5 seconds. And we'll see how this turns out.
Masters in 4 presentations.
Thank you so much for watching. All righty. Any questions so far while we're at this stage? If they do come to mind, you just let me know. All right, the last thing I want to do is bring that last bit of flavor, really bring this project home, fancy it up. I found a lovely music track here that I'd like to sit under my voice as I speak. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that down to track 1 here on the very bottom. Let's, I'm also going to do what I did earlier with my voice. I'm going to go to display and show waveform. So this way I can actually see the volume of the audio throughout its playback. So let's go ahead and let's start up. Let's see how this all blends.
My name is Tom Cruz. I'm the Digital Media Manager at this.
Couple of issues here. 1, it's generally kind of loud. And 2, it's overwhelming my voice far too much. What do we do about something like this? Well, I'm spent. No, just kidding. I know exactly what we can do. All right, so I'm going to go in here. I'm going to hit right click. And what we want to do is go to volume. And I want to affect the entire clip. So I'm going to put the volume level to 10. As you can see, you have options to fade in and out as well through this little menu here. But for now, I just want to turn all that volume down to see if I can recover my voice a bit and still have this lovely rhythm in the background. All right, so let's watch it again and see if that's improved things.
My name is Tom Cruise. I'm the Digital Media Manager with FSU Libraries.
Much better. However, maybe not low enough. So as you can see from the volume options, while they exist, they're somewhat limited. I picked 10%. That's the lowest you can pick before you get to 0. So let's find something a bit more detailed that we can use. When I right-click, I can open up properties. As you can see, OpenShot's a bit modular. Sometimes you can access more features. What we've been using so far is called the simple interface. If you come down to view or come up to view here, there's a simple view and an advanced view. For now, we'll stick to simple, but bringing up these properties here starts to flirt a bit with the advanced view. Now, what I'm looking for here is volume. You're going to get all kinds of different parameters here. Some of them are only for visual stuff, but for our audio, I'm just going to talk to volume here for a moment. So it's already at 0.10, 10%. I'd like to bring it down to 0.05. I'm going to hit enter. And while you might not see it right away, a teeny tiny keyframe has appeared. So it's animated it. It's actually going to start at 10%, what we set it for before. And by the time I start speaking, it'll get down to a lower volume that I think will be more appropriate. So effectively what we've done is we've made it crossfade to a lower volume after it starts.
My name is Tom Cruise. I'm the Digital Media Manager with FSU Libraries. In this short presentation, I'll be providing an
Much better. That's a good balance to strike, because what I'm saying is going to be much more important than how fine and sophisticated my music choice may be. Now, as you can see, the track is a bit lengthy. It goes far beyond my intended end for the video. It's a little bit late in the game, you'd imagine, but I'm going to tell you how to split a clip. A couple of ways to do this. And of course, if you have a longer video clip that you don't want to use all of, this is also how you would go about this. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of our properties tab here. We don't need to look at that anymore. So I've selected this audio clip. I want to actually split it here because this is where my video ends. And I don't want any of this riffraff. So there's a scissor tool here. It's the razor tool. It turns your symbol into a razor when you're holding it over a clip. So if I click on that, just cut it right down the middle. Now I have to deselect that razor tool, and then I can select the clips that I want. Rather brutal. Thank you. Your added commentary brings me joy today. So, yeah, once the clip has been split and brutalized, you can then hit delete, and it disappears from existence. It is entirely defeated and yeah, removed from your life. Something else I'd also like to do while I'm here, I noticed that there's a dip in the music, entirely stylistic. I don't know how enriching this is going to be. But when the video ends, as a little stylistic flourish, I'd like the music to kind of come back up a little bit louder. So this is how it sounds right now.
And wish you luck on your Masters in 4 presentations.
That can actually be perfectly adequate. But I'm going to decide to be a diva about this. So while selecting this clip, I could use that razor tool again, but let's talk shortcuts. If you hold Control or Command and hit K, you can accomplish the same effect. Now, it's also sliced literally everything on top of it. And that's okay. It's not, again, once the sausage is made, no one's going to notice, right? Right, Tom? Yeah, that's right. And I'm going to raise the volume of this just a tiny bit. So we'll go back to volume here. That's time. Volume, entire clip, 10%. Gonna jam by the end of this video.
Good luck on your Masters in 4 presentations.
Something maybe most people won't notice, but at least I'll know it's there. Alrighty. So I think that this is where I'd like it. I'm rather happy with where it is. I'll make sure that according to my outline here that I've been pretending didn't exist does in fact reflect where we'd like to be, and that I haven't skipped past anything that might be useful. The very next thing that we'll be moving on to is exporting the video. Now, before you turn this into its final form, something that you should do now, and something that I should have been doing all throughout this, is saving. You know, again, OpenShot being free, sometimes it can be unpredictable. If you've gotten to a point where it's like, hey, I'm glad I did that, be sure to save, both there or by hitting Control or Command S. Someone asks, do I have a source for open use background music? I do, actually. I have a couple of sources that I highly recommend. So if you have a YouTube account, they have a part of their site called the YouTube Audio Library. I'll go ahead and drop a link to it here. It's possible that you might need to sign into your YouTube account. And I'll go ahead and I'll add this to the documentation that we release after the fact. By the way, it might appear in our blog. Actually, let me try that out. I'm going to open it in an incognito window to see if it does in fact work without an account, because I'd like that to be useful, ideally. Okay, it's going to make you sign in. But all that to say that with the YouTube audio library that I'm trying to smash in there, hang on. There we go. So it allows you to search for free music. You can go to filters to select things from genre, mood, duration, and whether or not you need to add attribution. So there are some artists out there that, bless their hearts, will allow you to use their work even in commercial projects without the need to credit them. But of course, it is a kindness if you do decide to credit them. There's also a library of surprisingly good sound effects. So if you decide to start on that audio drama project, or you're making some kind of, you know, audio visually rich video project, I highly recommend checking them out here. Another resource that has been very helpful for me is called the Free Music Archive. That is freemusicarchive.org. This is also another site where you can find a lot of royalty-free or Creative Commons music. I was going to say stuff because I am so verbose. Anyways, so yeah. From here, let's move on to exporting our project. So I've watched it a dozen times to make sure it's just the way that I want. And I can either go to File, Export Project, Export Video, or the same button exists right here on this toolbar. So I'll select Export Video. And there's a couple of things we want to do here. So I want to name my project. It's got this very long name right now, but I'll just say the best video because it is. And I can pick a folder path here. So I'll hit browse. Oh my gosh, I should have spent more attention or paid more attention to time. We're at 11:59. Bless you all for staying any time past that. And thank you for having come so far. Luckily, this is the very end of what we're doing today. So you select the folder that you'd like it to go to. In this case, it's my exports folder. This is fine. MP4 is generally your most flexible format. That's where it's going to start off. Select the resolution you'd like. There's many, many options, but chances are this option 720p resolution at 30 frames per second is a-okay. And high quality, which will affect your file size. So if you need smaller files, go ahead and pick medium or low. And once you hit export video, you'll get this lovely little progress bar here. And I've already done this earlier and exported it. It came out great. If I can find it, there we go.
My name is Tom Cruz. I'm the Digital Media Manager with FSU Libraries. In this short presentation, I'll be providing an overview of the video requirements. Thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful and wish you luck on your Masters in 4 presentations.
Awesome. So hopefully that's been helpful. And of course, after you have exported your projects, I also do highly recommend that you watch the final video, make sure that no errors made it into the final version before you decide to publish it wherever it is you'd like.